Experience in Buddhist Faith by David Grilly.
I'm Dave. On November 18th, 2010, I finally reached 40 years of practice of Nichiren Buddhism.
Wow.
But I reached 40 years of practice of Buddhism, of Nichiren Buddhism with SGI USA. Through the consideration of SGI President Daisaku Ikeda and all the leaders in the U.S., I was able to receive the Distinguished Pioneer of American Kosen Rufu Award, along with 10 colleagues in faith who had begun their practice as I did back in 1970 and 71. My story in faith since this time is too long for one discussion meeting, let me think. However, I would like to share with you my most recent experience, which has unfolded over the past 2 years. So I'm a 2-year member. In February of 2009, I was invited to visit a longtime friend, Tony Collins, who now lives in Long Island, New York. Tony and his wife, Elaine, own a 13-room mansion in the woods of Long Island. They are also longtime SGI members from Chicago, who I befriended in the youth division activities in the 1970s and 80s. They are now the SGI USA Long Island Men's Division and Women's Division region leaders. During my visit, I spent a Friday on my own in Manhattan and got to go to the top of the Empire State Building for the first time in my life.
Wow.
It was like going to the Grand Canyon. I made many friends through this visit and felt great joy as I walked back through the city down Fifth Avenue. It was a beautiful sunny winter day in New York City. Along the way, I saw a person enter a lobby who resembled Wynton Marsalis, one of the world's greatest jazz trumpet players and director of New York's Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. I went with my gut instincts, ran into the lobby and shouted, "Are you Wynton Marsalis?" The young man turned around and said, "Yes." I was flabbergasted and felt this huge rush of joy and adrenaline surge through my entire body. I asked if I could talk for a minute. He warmly agreed with a radiant smile on his face. I told him that I was a jazz musician from Chicago and that I had been a great admirer of him since the early 80s. I gave him my business card, a Nam-myoho Renge-kyo card, and a copy of a newly created pre-release CD of my group, the Grilly Brothers Sextet, Going Places. He was very gracious and said he hoped that we would meet again one day soon. And 2 weeks later, we met in Chicago at Symphony Center. Spent the whole evening together. Wow. He then disappeared in the elevator. I was blown away by the fact that one of the world's greatest jazz musicians now had a copy of my CD. I continued on my way through downtown New York to the SGI USA Culture Center. When I got to the reception desk, I was greeted by Senior Vice General Director David Kasahara. He was pulling Toban. Some of you know what that is. A founding pioneer of the SGI organization in New York. I told him about my encounter with Wynton Marsalis. He then explained to me the reason for this is because the great milestone of the 80th anniversary of the Soka Gakkai, and that the number 8 means to open. This means, he said, this means that unbelievable, tremendous fortune will begin to open up in all of the lives of the pioneers for American Kosen Rufu. I felt great joy from his encouragement and brought this new sense of hope with me back to Chicago. During this time, I continued to try my best in XGI activities, try my best at work, and support the Grilly Brothers Sextet to the best of my ability. My life continued on a positive trend where I became a truly joyful SGI member doing activities with Wrigleyville District. I became indispensable at my IT job in the state of Illinois and enjoyed the beginnings of great success with the Grilly Brothers Sextet, as we were asked to play the Jazz Showcase 3 times last year, invited to play the 2010 Chicago Jazz Festival, and having our CD Grammy recognized. My life then took a turn the other way when, in September of 2010, I was diagnosed with a dilated aortic aneurysm, which would be fatal unless repaired through open heart surgery. I quickly became bummed out and scared. I underwent open heart undergone open heart surgery 19 years ago and felt terrified at the thought of having to once again experience coming out of this kind of surgery in intensive care, having to undergo 3 days of extremely painful and anxiety-ridden post-op recovery. After about a week of this apprehension, I could not deny the encouragement of Nitrin, which has been pounded into my head over and over, almost every meeting, every year. Nitrin says, in inscribing this Gohonzon, Nitrin was like the Lion King. This is what the sutra means by the power of the Buddhas that has the lion's ferocity. Believe in this Mantala with all your heart. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is like the roar of a lion. What sickness can therefore be an obstacle? I mean, like, duh, you know. So, come on. I went back to the Gohonzon and chanted Daimoku with a new sense of courage. My doubts and anxiety eventually lifted, and I was showered with Daimoku and encouragement from friends and SGI members